One of the coolest and certainly most historical gifts I've ever received is this crusty old bundle of paper here. These are not your average 100-year-old postcards. These are sheet music for Czech folk tunes, marches and polkas and waltzes and the like. And this bundle was sent to me by a viewer of mine, Rob Case. If you're watching, give me a shout in the comments. And Rob sent me this bundle in the hopes that I could breathe some new life into this sheet music, since supposedly, according to him, it hasn't been heard in over 100 years. Now, these pieces were scored with a traditional polka band instrumentation, 2 cornet parts, a bass flugelhorn part. Now, bass flugelhorn's not a terribly viable instrument in the modern sense, but there are other valved low brass that can do a decent job of approximating it. A bass part, which is best done on things like F or E-flat tuba, and the historical E-flat that I'm borrowing works perfectly for it, and 2 clarinet parts, one in E-flat, one in B-flat. Now, I don't know how well you know me, but if you look at my channel name, you might hazard a guess that clarinet's not exactly within my wheelhouse. I figured if I was getting other people involved in this project, then I probably didn't want them reading this chicken print, so I figured I'd transcribe it out for a couple of reasons. First of all, it'd make it easier to read, a little bit more legible, and it'd also make it easier to conceptualize what exactly was going on in the music, because the only recording I was able to find of the march that primarily comprises this sheet music here, although there are a couple other things sprinkled in, the only recording I could find was terribly low fidelity. It was a cell phone video from years and years and years ago of a record player playing a rendition of it from the 1910s or so, and you can barely tell what's going on in the piece. You can almost make out a melody at times. That's sort of where we were at, and that was not terribly much to work with. So I plunked as much as I could into MuseScore. The cornet parts went off without a hitch for the most part. There were a few notes here or there that didn't make a lot of sense, and I had to adjust a little bit. But for the most part, nice melody and harmony. The bass flugelhorn part added some nice counter melodies along with reinforcing some of the cornet 1 stuff. Then I got to the bass part, transcribed some of it out. Some of it didn't seem to line up very well. The harmonies were kind of mismatched a little bit. Sometimes there was a 1-chord sort of note in the bass part where there was a 5-chord going on in the ensemble or such things. And it was kind of weird. I couldn't exactly figure out what it was until I took a closer look at the title. This polka had a title similar to the one that I was working on, but was slightly different, a slightly different title. I looked on the back side of the postcard, it was a completely different polka. I flipped back to the front again, I realized these weren't the droids I was looking for. I didn't have the original bass part to the piece I was trying to transcribe. But the more I looked at the bass part for this slightly different one, the more I realized, well, it was in the same key, it had a key change to, once again, the same key as the other piece. And the bass part was so close to what I expected would be the case for the piece I was working on that I was able to honestly just copy and paste most of it in and just change a couple chordal things here or there, and it basically worked. I also doubled a melody from the bass flugelhorn part to kind of make it feel a little bit more authentic. But that, honestly, once I figured out sort of the cheat code, the fact that those 2 pieces were so similar, it all worked out, and then the clarinet parts were essentially the cornet parts an octave up. And then at that point, since I wasn't sticking entirely to the original sheet music, since I didn't have the original bass part, I figured I couldn't go amiss with a couple of parts for alto horn. Now, alto horns are found a lot in traditional European folk music, and they make, sometimes, if not much else, great offbeat instruments. So I have 2 alto parts that are essentially a glorified accordion. Because of the historical nature of this project, I figured it was a very appropriate excuse to use that 1912 Holton new proportion cornet for the cornet parts. It's a lot of fun to play. It's not my instrument, but it's very, very cool and has a gorgeous tone quality. The only problem is it feels really, really stuffy, and it's extremely difficult to play for long periods of time. If you try and play the march all the way through, you feel like your head's gonna explode while playing that cornet, just because of the absolute back pressure of 110-year-old technology. And for the alto part, I dug up this old saxhorn-style alto that I don't plan on keeping for much longer, as I have enough alto brass in my life. But before I send it off and sell it for some pittance, I do want to feature it a little bit on the channel. And it did okay as an offbeat instrument. There are a couple things I need to do restoration-wise, such as fix that. That's not right. But nonetheless, despite it playing rather sharp most of the time, it did well for its intended function. For bass flugelhorn, I was a little stuck, but I settled on an old valve trombone that I restored, and that worked decently aside from a couple of solder joints breaking during the recording, but I suppose I can fix that another time. And then for the bass part, I had essentially the perfect instrument, which is an old saxhorn-style E-flat tuba by the Couesnon company that I'm borrowing, and that honestly worked really well. Then after that, all I had to do was figure out the clarinet parts, since once again, not exactly in my wheelhouse. And so I talked to my friends Tommy and Jonny from GU, got them in the recording studio, and had a lot of fun. Now, before I show you the fruits of our labor, I'd like to make one small interjection here. If you find you got a few bucks weighing your pockets down and you want to support the work I do on here, support the creation of bigger and better content, then please consider checking out patreon.com/SamuelPlaysBrass or following the link down in the description. Supporting my channel on Patreon is one of the best ways to ensure, once again, bigger and better content, as there's a lot of projects I want to do, but sometimes I can't afford to fund them out of pocket all the time as a broke college student. So your support would be greatly appreciated, and there's a whole host of perks and benefits depending on how much you're able to pledge. Anyway, we'll return now to our regularly scheduled programming. This project truly was a lot of fun. I'd like to give another thank you to Rob for sending along this awesome historical sheet music, and of course to Tommy and Jonny for providing their clarinet prowess. It was a lot of fun to get them in the studio and figure out how to mic a clarinet. We had a really great time, and they did some really phenomenal work. This project would not have been possible without them. I think the clarinets added a whole new dimension to the sound of the mix, so I was very glad to work with Tommy and Jonny there. I'll make a final note here. If we can get 50 likes on this video, there is, on this march sheet music, on the backside, a little waltz. And if we can get to 50 likes, I'll engrave that out, as I did with this piece, and perform that. It'll be a little bit of extra work since I have no basis for the bass part on this one. I don't have anything to work with, and so I'd be making a fair bit up, but I think it could be another fun opportunity to play another historical piece on the channel. So, once again, 50 likes, and we'll start working on the waltz. With that, I'll leave you be to enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Samuel Plays Brass, restoring and playing some interesting historical Czech sheet music. And until next time, we'll see you on the flip side. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you want to support the creation of bigger and better content on the Samuel Plays Brass channel, have your name featured right here, and a whole host of other perks and benefits, then please consider pledging your support at patreon.com/SamuelPlaysBrass. For now, you can find more videos in the end screen cards to my left.